This is an important video. It's about, well, everything that's important to you. What's important to you? The roof over your head? Yes. It's about that. It's about your children. It's about your family. It's about eating and sleeping. You're looking at a picture of the corona. It's a black and white kind of offset on the occulting disc for some reason. But you are seeing what the sun looks like today at Mauna Loa Observatory. You see the glowing in the background. Kind of resembles what it looked like about a month ago with a well-defined focusing cone. Well, this picture was taken at right angles to that focusing cone, and now it's passing in. Notice how the brightest part of this corona is still at the 10 o'clock position. On a rotating sun, you would think that would shift a little bit. Notice also the other, what could have been active regions, that those areas are less defined and more cloudy and widely dispersed, and there's more light in the background altogether, before and after. Well, it didn't used to look like this. In 2020 and 2019, it looked like this. It almost looked like a flying saucer disc. And that's because whatever leaves these cosmic rays behind that are glowing in the corona was coming in from all sides. Planet X made a sweep through the solar system, came up through the asteroid belt, past Earth December 2019, and left its dust on all four quadrants of the sun. So the sun focused it all in, and the sun had a disk there for a while. I told you that this 171 angstroms 17 nanometer radiation was getting cut off in the loops. People said I was crazy, and look at the 10 o'clock position. It's cut off. We look at the 1 o'clock position just in case we have a stop sign as a template, and no, the only thing that's really hacked is a stop sign like cut at the 10 o'clock position, keeping you from seeing just how far out now you can see these loops into the corona. Why? It's because there's so many particles and so many electrons. You get particles in a glass tube, put electrons through it, and the tube lights up. And so we have a neon light using electrons and plasma. The sunspots are still shooting. We just showed you the active one that's doing a lot of this noise. But the thing is look at the baseline now. We were warning about this, that when we start going into solar maximum, just the baseline alone is like a C flare being emitted every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every week. A C flare, C flare, C flare. Not that big a flare, but constant. So the X1 flare, you can see the radio blackout at the lower right-hand corner. Goodbye India for a few hours. And then M4.4, well, we had actually a breakout that affected the West Coast and the Pacific region with a radio blackout from those flares. And when we talk about, now, why do I bring this up? I mentioned your family, then I give a little science lecture on the radiation of the sun and the cutting off of film. I mean, what does this all mean? Well, it means there's a lot going down. There's a lot going down in the solar system, and when you look at the health consequences of long-term, everyday exposures, kind of like, what I was just talking about, the C flares, you see that we have myocardial disease is a huge issue, and then cognitive dysfunction. And if you think people are going crazy now, wait for another year. A few more crazy medicines that you inject, a few more neurological viruses, a little more neurological radiation, put a little fluoride in the water, and these people will listen to anything you have to tell them over a TV set. Yes. The other consequence of radiation and ultraviolet is skin cancer. The darkest purples are the ones that make up the largest percentage of skin cancers on planet Earth. and you can see it's all white people getting skin cancer. Radiation coming off the sun, we talk about it all the time. Nobody likes hearing about it, but you know, the ultraviolet C we never talked about a whole lot. We talked about the 250 nanometer, the 200 nanometer, the 180 nanometer, but that stuff is hard on the skin. It really is. But we're talking like extreme ultraviolet. We're talking stuff that can ionize atoms. It's so powerful. It's very close to being gamma radiation in terms of the energy. So as I show you these flashing cosmic rays that are in the corona of the sun, which help to make up that disk, which helps to create that background glow that I was just showing you on the coronagraph taken from Mauna Loa. And you can see quite easily that the active regions on the sun aren't primarily responsible for the Mauna Loa arms, the legs, the branching of the prominences and the filaments. It's not just the prominence and the filaments that are creating this glow. It's cosmic rays. These aren't just streamers coming out of the sun, always in the same position. You know, the sun rotates. Sunspots come and go. You got to wonder why there's such a persistence in this imagery that always shows you kind of this hourglass, kind of like that it did for almost 2 years. We got that little disc shape around the sun when there was absolutely no sunspots, zero sunspots whatsoever. We were still getting that little flying saucer shape to the sun. So, but the ultraviolet rays, some of the things, there's wavelengths in there that get reflected easier than others. So you get down to the 180 nanometer and you get down to the 90 nanometer, that stuff can still reflect. It doesn't always absorb. And when they crisscross these waves, every time a wave crosses its another wave, you amplify the wave. Think of the ocean waves. When one wave meets the other, there's a wave coming out, a wave going in. When they hit, all of a sudden they become one wave for a split second. It's huge. So you can get higher readings of ultraviolet off the ground than you can on the ground, which is, you know, leads to a whole nother video, I'm sure. So the ultraviolet index is to measure that extreme ultraviolet. And in 2004, something happened that was unprecedented. They adopted a new UV index. NOAA, the National Weather Service, NOAA is the North American Atmospheric Association, and the Weather Service decided to change our UV index. Where 10 used to be max, now the maximum is called 11 and above. So, I mean, what's happening that we have to change our UV index after decades? What's happening? And could they be printing just the mean for the state, the mean index? Are they giving you the UV indexes that exist in every spot? No. So if you're at higher elevation, you can expect your UV index to increase. Well, here, the EPA says 2% for every 1,000 feet, but then another study says no, at 8,500 feet, it's 60% higher in Vail, Colorado than it is in New York. 60% at 8,500 feet is more than 2% per 1,000 feet. So, but you can't get anybody to agree. It says the levels of UV increased by 10%. So we go 2% and 10%. Well, somebody, I'll have to tell you right now, somebody's a little off in that calculation. When you have two answers to a math problem, usually one of them is wrong. So at high elevation, UV radiation gets hotter and hotter. This one says by about 4%. So, and then it uses the Mile High City, Denver, in this one, saying it's 20% stronger than located at sea level at the same latitude. Well, so 20%, 60%, I mean, can we all just agree on a number? Well, of course, radiation from the sky depends upon overcast, particulates, stuff like that. Even the season. So, summer is always a little hotter, isn't it? So, anyway, here was the old UV index, up to 10, now 11 and above. So what happened in 2004? And can these numbers be fudged? I mean, why on April 20th we had a UV alert in a completely different place? Of course, all 10s. No 11s, no 11s and above, just all 10s. So somebody put a lid over us and kept the stuff out. But the problem is if this is showing at your state 10, UV index 10, at elevation it gets higher, and I would go with the 10% per 1,000 feet. I really would. I don't know how you can't get away with using that as a measuring tool. So, but why 2004? Well, maybe it was what happened in 2003. The highest UV index ever recorded. Recorded where? In Bolivia, which is on the equator. 43.3. No, you did not mishear me. It's 43.3 UV index. The volcano is 20,000 feet high. So if the UV index was 10 at sea level, then at 20,000 feet you get a quadrupling of your UV index. So you can do the math. But so the ultraviolet is harmful, the extreme ultraviolet. In fact, it can shred your DNA faster than gamma, because sometimes gamma it's so fine and so small, passes right through things. Passes through a cell, misses the nucleus. But extreme ultraviolet is like a very powerful shotgun. It has a wider range. So we've been having geomagnetic storms. I showed you the whole string that we had. I showed you the whole string of C flares, hardy-har, with some M flares and an X flare in there. We showed you that. So we've been having geomagnetic storms almost on a daily basis. We had a little reprieve there for a couple days. But I went back because I found some instruments that were still up and running. This is the Proton Count, and nowhere during our geomagnetic storms and in the recent days have we had any protons. Well, you gotta ask, how do you have geomagnetic storms without protons? Because they're always associated with geomagnetic storms. So basically what we're saying is that something other than the protons are causing your geomagnetic storms. But at the Lake Kabur, Lincoln Kabur, that's the volcano in Bolivia, like I say, 20,000 feet high, and if it was snow covered, which it may have been, 20,000 feet, you can get even higher readings. We're just going to let you know about that. But what 2003? Now let's see what was happening in 2003. Well, in 2003 we were into our second peak of solar max, and on our way down. So we were coming down from a pinnacle. So we were in a transition phase between solar max down to solar minimum. There's a relationship between the number of cosmic rays coming from outside the solar system related to the number of sunspots. Why? Because all those CMEs try to push the cosmic rays away from us. The cosmic waves, Elma. So the whole thing is that we're going through a transition now, but we're going from solar minimum to solar maximum. So that means those cosmic rays are at the highest level we've ever seen in the history of mankind. They've been increasing for the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. The closer Planet X got, the more cosmic rays we got. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Now, we have maximum. How do I say this? We have more cosmic rays than in the history of the planet. Ever. They'll blame it on not enough sunspots, but the bottom line is we've had 0 sunspots before, and with a lot less cosmic rays. So, to prove this, it's all over the place. We've been showing you example after example, evidence after evidence, proving that there's just an unhealthy amount of cosmic rays that we need to deal with. This stuff's going to sneak up on you, and you're going to regret it. And so I'm calling your attention to an NL spiral that shows you a CME coming out from the sun. The yellow dot in the middle, pie cut, that's Earth. You're looking at Earth as it's going away from you, north and south, top and bottom. And you see a cosmic ray being ejected out into the solar system. Here's one thing about this simulation. I've showed this before. It's really prominent right here. That according to the scale below, which we should be talking about, 10 to a 20. The further away it got. It went from 10 particles per unit to 20. It doubled. The concentration doubled. Now, when you shoot a shotgun, you can shoot that shotgun 1,000,000 times. And whatever direction you want, the BBs will scatter. Okay? These things are mushrooming. They're supposed to be scattering. And instead of lesser concentration of particles, we go from a 10 to a 20. We go from green to red. Can you believe it? So that would defy all laws of physics, and you would start seeing the crazy articles again. Well, we need to rewrite the laws of physics. No, we need to rewrite your brain. And so you have to understand that the evidence is all around you. And if, I can't show you enough articles about how dangerous cosmic radiation is for your heart and your brainstem. They did tests on mice, humanized mice, long-term stuff on astronauts. I mean, a lot of those astronauts look pretty frail. Most of them have tremors, if you notice. Try to find an 80-year-old astronaut that doesn't tremor. His head doesn't shake. So, I found more instruments. I can't use integrative space weather hardly at all except for this magnetosphere simulation. But they've changed the units. I just showed you on the last one. The unit on the last one was 10 particles minimum per 1/1000th of a cubic centimeter. What, 1/1000th of a cubic centimeter? How much is that? I don't know, but it's a lot more. It's a lot more when the unit goes down. And so here we have a really intense density of electrons. The flow of electrons where? At the equator. Now wait a minute. This is so confusing. A cubic 1/1000th of a cubic centimeter, and we have electrons at the equator when they're supposed to be focused in where? At the poles. So what's going on? Well, first of all, with respect to the electrons, you notice some spiraling in the tailstream. That comes from the interaction of two different winds, creating a spiral, and the electrons fly by the poles and get pulled back around. Yes, they do. They get pulled back around. Majority of certain energy end up at the equator, and where they they collect and are actually focused and pushed in there until you reach like a critical mass, and then they eject out back into the tailstream. But yes, a 43.3 UV index was detected. So then they went, well, we have a UV index scale that goes to 10. What do we do? Well, now you know why. It's 11 and above. Not 11, not 15, not 20, but 11 and above. The sky is the limit. So let's talk. Let's just talk real personal for a second as I flash through some of these articles. People know this is happening. People know crops are dying. People know we have record warm oceans and that they've been climbing in temperatures quite steadily since solar maximum kicked in 2011, 2010. They know, they understand the implication of a warming ocean. The surface temperature, especially, we know that something's cooking the surface temperature. They know what it is. The number one absorber of radiation is water. So when we have crops that are in danger, and we've lost so many chickens to the heat, turkeys. We've lost tens and hundreds of thousands just in 2011, 2012. So then the bird flu kicks in, and now we lose a few million more. Now the fertilizer that goes to the world was cut off, but that's okay. We have our local fertilizer, people. We can crank up production. Let's have our own people. Let's rally the troops. Let's save America. No, when a global fertilizer shortage kicks in, Union Pacific, pretty much a monopoly of railroads, restricted fertilizer shipments to farmers. Now, I swear to you, that's what happened. And you don't think it's related to the sun, you're sadly mistaken. Because when we are going into an extinction level event, you're going to see all kinds of dastardly deeds being done to keep you divided, keep you poor, and keep you in need of government. Who in their right mind in America would shut down fertilizer shipments to farmers in the midst of record heat? We're going to hit record high temperatures this summer. They're already warned us. And Australia did it in their summer. So, if somehow you think the sun's going to change in another month, you're mistaken. The only thing the sun's going to do in the next month is get more sunspots. And then it's going to get more energy. And then this summer is going to be harsher than last summer. And so we have crop failures. We had COVID shutting down farms. We have farmers being told to plow their fields. We've had megatons of food just rotting in warehouses and on railroad cars. So when they put out stuff on TV, there are patents on strobing wavelengths of light, pulsating photons of energy, and even electromagnetic energy, with patents that can induce chemical changes in your brain. There's patents on 2 different frequencies, patents that they could, that the design is to put them into TV and monitors of your computer. We've had this channel actually since 2008. So that's when we put up our first Mars videos. But we've been saying that mankind will make a move. And it'll be in the banking system. It'll be in the billionaires. And all of a sudden it'll be in the military. And so what we're seeing is it that exact scenario being played out? Does history repeat itself? Well, if it does, somebody was awfully specific in the Bible. And they were bringing forth information and knowledge, describing what would happen during pole shifts, describing what would happen, a passage of a brown dwarf, and the fourth angel cast a vial upon the sun and made to have the power to burn the flesh of man. I don't know how you can get any more specific than that in a spiritual, mystical kind of a way. But we have food shortages that are created. That should scare you. I mean, it should freak you out. You should lose sleep over it. Somebody's trying to starve you. That should freak you out. I mean, but it's not going to. It's not going to freak anybody out. You know why? Well, everybody who's not going to freak out is probably going to sit down, pick up the remote control on the end table. So crops are failing, oceans are dying. It's rampant now, and it's easy right now to create a food shortage when you already have drought and heat destroying your crops. And yeah, we have freezes too. Absolutely. One freeze can wipe out your entire nation if they don't warn you about it first. And that's also been happening. They've been underreporting the cold temperatures, so that people are getting taken surprise by this all of a sudden freezing temperature in Dallas. So right in the middle of the season where we've got to fertilize, you can't get it from Ukraine, can't get it from Russia, and now you can't get it from your own country. How about that?